welcome back to the channel. Back in November I passed my mountain leader qualification. This allows me to guide groups and people across the UK and Northern Ireland. It's a great qualification to have, not just for professional use but also for personal experience and personal gain, as you learn a lot of skills and techniques along your path from taking the initial steps of signing up to do the training all the way through to the assessment. The whole process is a massive learning opportunity and you're with some great instructors, and it's well worth the trouble and the time that you have to put in for the qualification. The reason I thought I'd do this video now is because we're starting to come into March, which is when the courses start to take place. They'll take place anywhere between now and the beginning of November, which is when I did mine. The first thing to do when you want to do the course is to be registered with BMC and register onto the course on the Mountain Leader website, or Mountain Training website, sorry. You then need to look at the prerequisites, which is to have 20 quality mountain days to do the training. The training is a 6-day course which includes a 1-night expedition, and you learn everything from group management, steep ground, to navigation, to camp safety, and all sorts of things like that. So once you've done the training, you then need to do your consolidation period. This can be anywhere from a few weeks all the way through to, well, indefinitely. There's no end on, there's no time period between the training to when you have to do the assessment. When you go to do the assessment, you need to have 40 quality mountain days as a minimum, and I passed mine on 40 quality mountain days. You don't need to have 100, you don't need to have 50, you need to have 40. I'm not going to tell you today what qualifies as a quality mountain day. You can look that up on the Mountain Training website. I know there's always lots of questions on what qualifies as a quality mountain day or not. Look up on the training website and it'll be there. So along with the 40 quality mountain days, you need to have it across 3 different regions across the UK and Northern Ireland. So whether that's Brecon Beacons, Snowdonia and the Lake District. It's up to you, but wherever you want to go, needs to be 3 different regions, and it's a great excuse to go to Scotland, but you don't need to go to Scotland to pass the qualification. I've never been to Scotland and I passed mine. So along with the quality mountain days across the UK, you need to have a first aid certificate as well. This just says that you've done a 2-day or 16 hours worth of first aid training. So when I went to do my ML assessment, I did it in Snowdonia, Wales at Brennan, which is the National Outdoor Centre. And I'd highly recommend using there, but you can use any place you want. If you're in the Peak District, there's centres and providers in the Peak District, same with Brecon Beacons, and any mountainous area or region across the UK and Northern Ireland, you'll be able to find people to run the course. If you're struggling to find people, look on the Mountain Training website. They've got a huge list of all the courses that are running and who's running them, and you can pick and choose who you want to go with. So the first day of the ML, we went out, before we left anywhere, we got the maps out and they said, right, find where we are. We all said where we were, and they were like, plan a route to get to here and tell me how long it would take, and they pointed to a ridge. So we planned out the route, told them how long it would take to get there, and then once we'd all done that, the assessor came over to one of us and said, right, take me to this point. And it was somewhere along the journey to get to that point that we'd originally been told. So it was like a 200-metre stretch or something quite easy, and it had quite an obvious feature. It was to just over a stile, so you had the feature of the wall on the map, and it was quite an obvious feature to go to, and that was kind of the case throughout the day. It was all very obvious features. And as the week went on, it got harder and harder, but to start with, just to find our legs and to kind of get into the swing of the assessment, everything was quite easy. They wanted to see like our knowledge of flora and fauna as well, so anytime we saw something we were allowed to stop and point it out to the group, but they only wanted you to do that if you were leading the group at the time, so if it was your navigation leg. They didn't want someone randomly taking over when it was someone else that they wanted to see at that time. So the second day we went to the Ogwen Cottage and we kind of went up past the Llynid Wall and up the steep slopes there, and kind of traversed across and came back round sort of Var Triffin. And it was a really good day out. They wanted to see, again, flora fauna knowledge, but they mostly wanted to see group management and correct route choices. So there was one time on that day where someone was leading the group and the assessor told them to stop because they were taking us too dangerous of a way. So when it comes to the assessment, just really think about your route choices, take a few seconds so that doesn't happen to you. Also on the second day, they asked for a few relocation points. So randomly throughout the day, they'd say, right, get the maps out, tell me where we are. Again, these were quite obvious points. So it was like a big clear opening and it was kind of the only one in that area. So it was quite obvious where we were. And the next one, again, was fairly obvious. It would just come down a ridge, big opening to the left, steep ground to the right. So again, another quite obvious point. And I think everyone in the course got it. So I wouldn't stress too much about that. Definitely recommend going out, practicing steep ground and kind of knowing where the limits are of the ML course as well. So for example, Cribgoch is sort of out of the remit as it's technically a level 1 scramble, but I definitely recommend doing it so you can, with a few friends, so you can get used to like managing people on the steep ground, because some of it is on that day was quite difficult, and the more you've done, obviously the more confident you'll feel and the better route choices you'll take. And you need to take into account not just what you're capable of, but what other people are capable of as well. So you might have someone quite nervous in the group and you're happy taking one route when actually you need to take a completely different route that's much easier. It might take a bit longer, but it'll keep the group safer, and it'll make it easier for you to manage the group as well, which is really important, because that's one of the main things they're looking for that day, is how you manage the group safely in the steep ground. So on the third day, we met up and we went through our home papers. So this just took, like before the course started, we were sent 40 questions, and it was everything from be able to recognise 4 different types of birds, one that's a foraging bird, one that changes its plumage, and so on. A few questions about myths and legends, the laws, all sorts of things. And it was actually quite good fun to do. I definitely recommend doing that far in advance, so it's one less thing to worry about, but it also encourages you to read around certain areas. So if there's any areas you're a bit unsure on, then it allows you to have that opportunity to read around them and kind of cement your knowledge slightly better. So along with doing the home paper, we were also given an hour to go to the kitchen, get any food we wanted, and kind of pack our bags and everything ready for our 3-day expedition. At about 12 o'clock we went out and we walked for probably about 45 minutes. We did a navigation point each to the campsite, we set up camp, and then we walked up some steepish ground to where there were some small rocks, some small boulders where we could do some rope work. Normally they try to do the rope work off the expedition so you don't have to carry the rope. However, they decided it would be much better due to the weather and the conditions we had to do it on the expedition. So we took one rope between us and one helmet between us, so we weren't all having to carry stuff. It was kind of, everything was split out between the bags, so I was carrying the first aid kit and group shelter, another person was carrying a rope, another person was carrying the helmet. So we weren't all bogged down with masses of kit. We did the rope work and they wanted to see abseiling as well as setting up a safe anchor or a safe rappel so you could lower someone down safely and bring someone up safely as well. Rope work, for me being a climber, was one of the easier parts of the course. However, it's something I would still recommend practicing even if you are very comfortable with it. Just getting used to moving the rope through your hands, setting up a safe anchor and safe anchor choice, because that's something you can fail the course on. If you choose a wrong anchor, then it's obviously quite dangerous, so you can fail. So I definitely recommend going out, practicing that a bit. Even if it's just like practicing around a chair at home, just like practicing letting the rope out to belay someone down or belay someone up. I practiced with my dog, it's quite easy. Tie the rope to his collar, practice belaying him as he walked to me, threw a ball, practice belaying him as he ran away. So it was quite easy and quite good fun actually. He enjoyed it as well. So it's one way to practice. So that night having done the rope work, we then went straight into our night nav and kind of went all the way around the valley and then back down to the tents. So it was actually quite a nice night nav experience. It wasn't raining or anything, which made it really good as well, especially for November. And it got dark at 4, so we started really early, which meant we got to bed at 8 o'clock. So we got masses of sleep and we weren't all knackered for the rest of the expedition either. On the night nav, we started off relatively easy, so it was take us to, one person was asked to take us to a lake. It was quite easy, and by that point it was starting to get dark, and we started properly, and each of the legs got progressively harder, but we all had like one easy-ish leg to get used to the dark and navigating in the dark, and then we had 2 more each which were a little bit more difficult. The following day we got up quite early and packed up camp and did some more navigation. Again, this was focusing on group safety, group management, navigation. It was also on this day that we swapped to the 1 to 50,000 map, so they wanted to see us using a different scale of map. Some places will allow you to use a 1 to 40,000 if you prefer the Harveys, but as long as you're comfortable and happy using 2 different scales of maps, then they'll be fine. But yeah, we use the OS maps, so the 1 to 25,000 and the 1 to 50,000 maps, and they'll tell you which maps you need and when you need to use them. And it was quite an easy day, quite a nice day, but as the day went on, the points got harder and harder, especially using the 1 to 50,000 maps. There's a lot less features on the maps, so I definitely recommend practicing with different scales so you get used to it, but also being able to recognise the terrain with a lot less features, visible features on the map, and you can tell it just from contour lines, because there was 1 or 2 points I had to navigate to that were tiny contour features that were barely recognisable on the map. And having practiced on different scales and with the lack of features on the map, I found it not as challenging as I might have done otherwise. So that night when we got into camp, we were given some time to set up, have some food, kind of just get ourselves ready for the evening. And then we met up again and we did our 10-minute talks. So before the assessment, you're told you need to prepare a 10-minute talk or activity. I chose to do mine on slate and slate mining around Snowdonia. It's a great opportunity to learn some stuff new, like some new stuff. So we had someone do it on the history of Snowdon Mountain and the cafe, and someone else do theirs on the lichen and mosses and things like that. And it was actually quite interesting, and I learned 1 or 2 things from it. And it's quite a cool activity because they get to see your knowledge, but also you get to find out new stuff about things that you potentially didn't know anything about. So along with the 10-minute talks, we also had our debriefs. So every night when you come back off the mountain or when you get to camp, you'll have a debrief, and it's an opportunity for the instructors to tell you, or the assessors, to tell you things that you're doing well at, things to work on, things they need to see, and kind of settle any nerves you've got as well. So it's a really useful thing. So the debriefs are really useful, and I definitely take note of everything the assessors tell you. So the following day we got up quite early and kind of packed camp up straight away, kind of had a talk about camp etiquette and all sorts of things like that, and just allowed the assessors to see any more knowledge that we might have, and kind of any more bits of information that we might not have talked about that they needed to talk about. We then walked out and we found quite a steep terrain, or quite a steep section that we had to go up, and this is where we did confidence roping. So that was quite easy, just tie the person up safely and just want to see how you manage the person down, how you talk to them and things like that. So after the confidence roping, we got the maps out and kind of agreed on a route we were going to take down, and kind of just reading the terrain. So like underfoot reading it. So, okay, it's going downhill. The map says it's going to kind of get steeper and then it'll get less steep again, and just like looking out for those features. So it was actually an opportunity that we all learned, and we didn't really do any navigation whatsoever. When we got back to the cars, they were like, congratulations, course is over. In you get, we'll drive back to Plasy Brennan. when we got back to Plazy Brennan, they said sort your kit out, have a shower, change whatever you need, and then we'll meet back at whatever time, I think it was 1 o'clock or something, and we'll do like individual debriefs and like say our goodbyes and everything. So we were given like 3 hours or something, and this gave the assessors an opportunity to kind of come together, because you're seen by 2 different assessors, and they can like consolidate their notes and make the final decisions of whether you passed or not. So when we met back, they did like a general goodbye to everyone. So after they've said their goodbyes, they then call you in one at a time for your debrief, and this is where they tell you if you've passed, failed or deferred. They talk to you about things you should work on, things you did well, how the course went overall, and then potentially what your future plans are. So they talk to me about future qualifications and like the next steps I should take, and it was another good opportunity to learn and see what my potential options are. After the debrief, that's it, the course is over and we got to go home. During the ML course I learnt masses, and I went to the assessment with the intention of learning. Obviously I wanted to pass, but I had it in my mind that pass, fail, deferred, I want to learn, and that was kind of helped me ease my nerves a lot, because going in I was very nervous. And one of the things the assessor said straight away is, this is an opportunity to learn, we all want you to pass, we don't intentionally try to fail anyone, but we need to see certain boxes ticked, and if you don't tick them then unfortunately you won't pass. And they were trying to make it very clear that they wanted us all to pass, and they would help us pass as much as they can, and if we mess something up, not to worry, to kind of just get back on with it. So if you mess up one thing, it's not the end of the world, everyone does. If you keep on making the same mistake, then obviously that becomes an issue. They were really good and kind of giving us opportunities to show skills if we might not have done it well previously. They gave us another opportunity to show them that we could do that skill again. So some of the best tips I can give you from having done the ML myself is take your time. You're under no time pressure whatsoever. So if you're planning your route, or you've been given your navigation leg and you're trying to plan where to go, how to get there, take your time, don't rush things. If you kind of get lost, not sure where you are, take a second, take a water break, give yourself an opportunity to look at the map, figure things out, figure where you need to go, where you've come from, and relocate that way. But they're not going to rush you to do anything. If you're taking your time and it's starting to drag on a bit, they'll come over and say, do you want to talk through your plan? And they'll try help you where they can, but obviously they can't tell you where you are, or like if you're right or wrong or anything like that. They'll just be like, okay, it sounds like you've got a good plan, carry on, or might talk you through your decisions and everything like that. So the next tip, don't freak out. If you make a mistake, obviously recognise you made a mistake, but then try not to make that mistake again. Like I said, the assessors will give you another opportunity to show off your skills. So if you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. Carry on, and you should be given another opportunity to show that skill again. One of the most important things they want to see on the assessment is your navigation. There's no point being a mountain leader if you can't navigate well, and they're really sharp on that, and they want to see good, solid navigation, and that you're confident with your navigation as well. They might question you, so why did you do that? Just to see your thinking. Don't freak out over it. It's just, like I said, they just want to see your thinking. You might get to a point and they might be like, are you sure? And instead of double guessing or second guessing yourself, they just want to see that you're confident that you are where you think you are. They're not trying to throw you off or anything, they just want to see that you are confident. When it comes to practicing navigation, practice in all different places. Practice in the mountains, practice in lowlands, because you're going to be, throughout the course, you're going to be in different areas. You might have areas where there's not many contour features. You might have areas where there's masses of contour lines all over the place. You need to be able to navigate in both those areas to big, obvious contour features, and like features on the map, to very, very small contour features where there's one contour line that's slightly wider apart than the rest. things like that. They'll get you to navigate to all sorts of different points so they can see how comfortable and confident you are with the navigation. It's really important to be comfortable on your feet, so practice walking in different terrains, on rocky terrain and steep ground or flat ground, because you don't want to be doing the steep ground day and everyone else is really comfortable and happy with what they're doing and you're there and you're struggling to stay on your feet. It doesn't look well, and chances are is you won't pass if that is the case. I would also highly recommend getting the mountain training book, the hill walking one. This is everything in here is all the information you need to know for the course. It goes on everything from the legal grounds to kit you should carry to group management, rope work. Like everything that's covered in the course is in this book, and it's a great thing to have. And a lot of the questions from your home paper are answered in the book as well, so it's well worth getting. Yeah, so I'd highly recommend getting the book if you're looking to do the course. So that's my roundup of my ML week and some tips that are hopefully useful and helpful to help you pass your course as well. If you enjoyed it, please comment, like and subscribe. It means a lot, and I'll see you next time. Bye.